Evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? This is Get It Right. As usual, on Tuesdays, we get to demystify concepts in our businesses, in our professional development. Today, we are going to touch on one of the most important changes, because we normally say that change is the most permanent thing. It is always there. And here in February, we have changes in our NSSF. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Richard Magoma, who is standing in for Grace. And of course, I have my co-host, that is Jacinta Karuanje. I hope I've pronounced that well. We are yet to have Catherine Sidandi. She's on an assignment. She'll be joining us soon. Today, we are going to look at the changes that are going to occur in our NSSF deductions. And we have our very able Fred. Fred has been a friend of this program for a long time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have the Growth Grid Mentorship Program Cohort 3. If you want to be mentored in areas HR and you want to become that very powerful, that very transformational HR person, you need to be mentored by none other than Grace and Anne Wamonje. The two are CHRPs. They're very qualified to make you understand how to come up with HR policies, HR audit and compliance, HR budgeting, HR reporting, HR performance management, HR setting up how to start that HR department, how to conduct disciplinary hearings, and one-on-one coaching. It starts on the 4th of March, 2026. It is going to be on Zoom. It is going to be on Zoom, and you're all welcome. The investment is 24,000. The till number is 91748997. And ladies and gentlemen, let me talk or announce to you, or let me say something nice about our sponsors, the people who make our Tuesday delightful. There, of course, we have those people who have that appetite for touring and visiting places, those people who are adventurers. You should be at the Nile front cottages. Very, very, very delightful to be there. You will see the source of River Nile. The other day I was watching, it is quite amazing. Then we have Profiles International, the people who do for you psychometric test and train you on emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has become one of the most important components of success. And if you want to be successful, you must have that competence of emotional intelligence, and none other than Profiles International that will assist you. And of course, when you want to train yourself or you want to consult on issues of HR in Rwanda, K22 HR Services are you people. Of course, we have Steadfast Quality Solutions by our good friend Herbert Zake, who has trained professionals to attain strengths that are important in their work. And of course, when you want to do things to do with insurance, AAR, you are in control. Then in Kenya, when you are in Mombasa and you want to enjoy the breeze and then come back to sleep and enjoy the evening and the meals and the good things that are offered in such facilities, Hotel Sapphire is there for you. Please be a guest at Hotel Sapphire in Mombasa. Too Far is in Nyanyuki. I have been here. It is a beautiful, the aesthetics of this place, my goodness. The food, Too Far Resort is the place to be. And of course, when you want to learn about good work, you want to train yourself on things to do with metal work and good work, making those good beds and stuff like that, Panessa Training Institute are your people. And for those people who love, who save, like who? I want to look for somebody who I know loves saving. I cannot see them. Those people who love saving money so that they can get those benefits of saving money in a circle. But circle are your people. Then for those people who love food, Sotet Kinyumbani are your people. In Nyanyuki as well, traditional food. This is a seventh season, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome Dr. Fred Waswa. He can introduce himself further. But tonight, most importantly, we are going to learn what are these changes that are taking place at NSSF. But when Fred was here last time, we were not using the word or the title Daktari. He is going to tell us something small about it. Karibu Daktari, tuambie maneno ambayo atatusaidia. Let us clap for Daktari, please.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate and I'm glad to be here to share something about NSSF. I'm still on the journey to become a doctor. I haven't, but everybody calls me doctor, so I just say, okay, let it be that way. I'm still on the journey, Richard. Yeah. But I appreciate. I think I want to go straight to the subject of the matter. Okay. My name is Fred Waswa. As Richard has mentioned, I am the group CEO and founder of Octagon Africa Financial Services Limited. We are a pension administration company. We do insurance broking in Kenya, in Uganda, and Zambia. We run umbrella funds for SMEs, especially so for contracting out of NSSF, as we will be able to see in our slides. So let me share my slides so that we can get to the subject matter immediately. Of course, I think each one of us understand that this is the 4th year of implementation of NSSF Act 2013. The NSSF was restructured. Of course, it had been running since 1969. And then the contributions were 200 shillings from the day they were restructured when the new act came in place in 2023. Now, why it is 2013 is because it was signed in law in 2013. It was supposed to be implemented in 2014 around January, February, and then some unions went to court, and there was a court case for 10 years. So come 2023, when the current administration came in office, they negotiated out of court settlement, and we had this implementation start. Now, two things that ideally do is that the act applies to all employers and employees, permanent, contract, and casual. So there is no exception. Whatever kind of staff you have, they need to be able to contribute to NSSF in one way or the other. It's a defined contribution scheme. What that means is that the accumulation of contributions at the end provides a benefit that gives partly cash and partly a pension, or what we call an annuity, which is an amount purchased from an insurance company. Now, the contributions are 6% employer and 6% employee. Talking from a higher perspective, with 6% employer, 6% employer. Now, the employers are required to raise the monetary contribution from 200 to, of course, this new contribution now, which is in place. The first year was 1,080, but then there's new contribution as we speak today, and that's why we are here today, to be able to help each other in terms of implementation of that act. Now, there is also the element of employers are allowed in law to contract out of NSSF. What it means is that you can be able to move your contributions away from NSSF and contribute to a private pension scheme, as long as you have gone through what we call a contracting out process. And we'll be able to look at that in terms of what are the requirements and what do you need to be able to contract out of your out for your pension scheme. One of the things that I have always said, because I was involved heavily in the negotiation of this very particular bill in 2002, is I think this is a good bill that we had for us, for our industry. I mean, for our people, for the employees, because previously people used to only contribute 400 shillings, which is 200 employer and 200 employer. Ideally, that contribution of 400 accumulated at a rate of return of 10% will give you something like about 800,000 in Kenya shillings in 30 years, which in 30 years, because of inflation, 800 will buy a pair of shoes. And you go home, you don't have a pension. Now, that was what was going on in our lives, and we went on as if nothing was happening. And then we were creating more people in poverty, I mean, more poor people in retirement, which then becomes a burden to the nation. Increasing contribution did two things. One is it increased the benefit, which means that one can be able to go home with a better benefit and therefore live on that benefit in retirement. But two, it also helped to increase coverage. Why? It's because when we did the contracting out, it means that then more employers who felt uncomfortable contributing into NSSF can contribute into a private pension scheme. So therefore, there is so we have more employers now coming out and saying, okay, I want to contribute, but I don't want to do that to NSSF. So you can do then the contributions into a private pension scheme, which means that we have higher coverage, which we need, because we have almost about 15 million human beings in this country who are working and they need to contribute to a retirement benefit plan, but they are not as we speak today. So let me see. Yes. So the definitions of terms, of course, a lower earnings limit. Lower earnings limit is the average statutory minimum wage. So the contributions are tied into tier 1 and tier 2, and tier 1 is 6% based on lower earnings limit, which is the average statutory minimum wage. And then there's upper limit, which is the currently 4 times national. I mean, the maximum is 4 times national average earnings. And then we have pension of earnings, which is the lower of the members' monthly wages or monthly salary, and the upper earnings limit. So if the upper earnings limit is for example 50,000 Kenya shillings, anybody earning below 50,000 Kenya shillings is basically 6% of their salary that goes into NSSF or a private pension scheme in the form of tier 1 and tier 2. So we want to see how those are in terms of contributions of tier 1. When we started in year 1, it was 6,000 Kenya shillings. And this 4 years, which is year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, which is 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, were fixed in law. Because what the government did is, because people were never contributing a lot of money, they did not want to have a lot of uproar. So what they did is to fix it. When the Act came in place in 2013, the minimum wage then was about 12,000 Kenya shillings, and the government decided to have 6,000, which is half of the minimum wage, as a starting point. Then the second year was good to go 7,000, and then third year and fourth year. So when we started the implementation in 2023, we simply mapped what the Act had in 2013 to 2023. So the first year was 6,000, second year was 7,000, last year was 8,000. This year, we're actually doing 9,000 Kenya shillings in terms of lower earnings limit. So anyone who earns 9,000 shillings and below are contributing 6% of their money directly to NSSF, because that is below the minimum wage, below the lower earnings limit, which is supposed to be minimum wage, but this is basically a legal provision in law that has been fixed at 9,000 Kenya shillings. Come next year, when we get to the fifth year, we will be implementing based on the minimum wage that will prevail in 2027. So it will not have a fixed amount. So from next year, it will now be moving with the minimum wage as declared from year on year. So this is tier one. So if someone earns a salary of 100,000 Kenya shillings, so tier one will basically be 9,000. Will be 540, which is 6% of 9,000 Kenya shillings, both employee and employer. Now, there are people who earn 9,000 and below. We don't expect that much, because I think minimum wage is much higher than that. And if there's anybody who earns less than that, then their contribution must be 540, or it will be 6% of the salary rather than 540, because the amount is below 9,000 Kenya shillings. So let's see, next slide is the tier two contributions. So we have looked at tier one contributions, which is contributions based on minimum, based on national on lower earnings limit. Now we want to look at tier two, which is contributions based on upper earnings limit. There are two sections: there's lower earnings limit and the upper earnings limit. Now, the upper earnings limit is ideally national average earnings. Now, the national average earnings is a statistic which is basically brought up in the economic survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics every year. Year one, we were taking 50% of national average earnings. Now, at that time, in 2013, national average earnings was 36,000 Kenya shillings. So we're doing half of that, which was 18,000. So anybody who was earning 18,000 and below, then will take a 6% of their salary. But anybody earning above 18,000 will only take 18,000 as the base on which we apply 6%. Now, year two was the full national average earning, which was 36,000. Year three was twice the national average earnings, which is 72,000. Year four, which we are implementing from this month, is 3 times national average earnings, which is 108,000 Kenya shillings. So what it means is that anybody earning a salary below 108,000 Kenya shillings, it is 6% of their salary. Yeah. And anybody earning above 108, it means that we're using 108. We're not interested in any amount above 108 in this respect. So the national average, the tier two for the 3 times national average earnings will be 6% will be 5,940. Now, if you take 6% of 108,000, you don't get 5,940. You will get a certain figure which you have to remove tier one, because it is netted off tier one. So what happens? Tier one is going to NSSF as tier one, and then tier two goes, of course, to NSSF. You don't have a pension scheme, or it goes to a private pension plan or an umbrella fund that you have in this respect. So 5,940 is employee and the employer matches that very particular contribution. If you are earning 108,000 Kenya shillings exact, but if you are earning less, then of course it is 6% of that salary. Suppose you're earning 100,000 Kenya shillings, then it is 6,000 Kenya shillings minus the minimum, the one, which is 540. That is the amount that goes as tier two. So differs from, of course, employee to employee, depending on how much the employee is getting in that respect. If we go to the next slide, we're talking about contracting out and opting out of NSSF. Now, as I mentioned, the argument for contracting out was to provide an option for members and organizations to be able to sample out their private pension schemes and be able to send contributions to those schemes that are compliant with the NSSF Act. And that's why the Act has explicitly provided for contracting out of Tier 2 contributions. Tier 1 contributions must go to NSSF, but Tier 2 contributions may go to NSSF if you do not have a private pension scheme or an umbrella fund, or you're not a member of a personal pension plan, which are compliant. So Tier 2 contributions may be contracted out to an existing scheme, which must be licensed by the Retirement Benefits Authority. So it's for you to be able to contract out, if let's say you have your own scheme and you have not contracted out, what you need to do is basically to apply. First of all, you need to make changes to your trust deed to provide a section for NSSF contributions, because NSSF contributions are ring-fenced in that they cannot be accessed until somebody reaches age 50 or age 60 at normal retirement age. And as you're all aware, the normal pension schemes, you can access your contributions up to 50% when you are leaving one organization and moving to another. Now, that is not allowed for NSSF contributions. So you must have in your rules, NSSF rules, that basically contributions of NSSF will be able to adhere to. So you must do an amendment to the trust deed and have resolution by the employer in terms of contracting out. So that resolution then is stating that we as an employer we are going to contract out of NSSF Tier 2 contributions to our own pension scheme, or if you don't have, to the umbrella pension scheme that you wish to be able to contract out to. So of course, there has been quite a lot of activity around the retirement benefits industry because most employers have opted to be able to contract out. So, and most of them are basically pushing the contributions into the umbrella funds, because starting pension scheme is normally it's cumbersome, but then too also the compliance aspect is also very involving. So you better get into an umbrella fund where the scheme there is one board of trust, which is a corporate trustee that does the compliance of the pension scheme and management of the pension fund. So your role is basically to send contributions to the pension scheme. So the employer is the one that has to apply for contracting out to NSSF, and the application is not done to NSSF. Application is done to a Retirement Benefits Authority. Then which authority then is able to give you that application. So on approval, you will receive a contracting out certificate, and Tier 2 contributions then can be sent to your scheme. So you'll need to send the certificate to NSSF to confirm to them that you have been contracted out, and therefore in the next month's contributions will not be able to go into the pension scheme. Into NSSF, they'll go into a private pension scheme. The employer then will remit Tier 2 contributions to the scheme, and then Tier 1 contributions to NSSF. I know that there has been some challenges, which we will look at in terms of what are we doing in this very particular respect. So we're looking at advantages of contracting out. If you are thinking about contracting out, one is better returns for the scheme. I know that of recent, NSSF has declared 17% return on their fund. Yes, it's a good one, which basically we need them to give us a better return. But you are looking at diversification as well, because diversification is critical. Is that we have all your eggs in one basket, especially in a basket that is heavily controlled by government. You are not very sure that the benefit actually will materialize at the time when you need it. But ideally, private sector pension schemes give better returns. They are much more diversified in terms of their investments. Efficiency, developed unique systems to provide efficiency in terms of administration and member statements and things like that. And then, of course, governance structures of pension schemes. You will have better governance structures for private sector pension schemes than what you have around NSSF. There's an element of when you let's say you join an umbrella fund, you are required to have a committee which basically marries or mirrors a normal board of trustees for a normal occupational pension scheme, which is a legal structure in the umbrella fund. So it helps to make sure that you are foreseeing the contributions. That doesn't exist around NSSF. So governance structures are much better than what you will have in a government pension scheme. And then managing cost, of course, private pension schemes, the cost of managing private pension schemes are largely capped around 2% of the fund. And RBA is extremely strict on that very particular area. So you find that members get more return, members get more benefit because the costs are largely managed. And of course, value addition, you'll always get things like financial trainings, financial literacy trainings, retirement options. You are able to be advised in terms of when the members retire, they get financial literacy sessions so that they can be able to choose the right organizations for insurance. And then, in terms of NSSF Tier 2 contracting out roadmap. So what is the roadmap for this? One is that assess benefits of contracting out, identify eligible RBA registered schemes. So there must be schemes that are registered by RBA and are compliant with the RBA regulations. So they have what we call a reference scheme test certificate. So that certificate is given by RBA to every scheme that has applied to be able to receive contracted out contributions. So that you must be able to confirm that. And then 2 is employee engagement. It's a requirement that you notify and consult employees. You do not need to have consent, but you need to be able to inform and consult. And unions, if you have any union that is involved in this. Explain benefits, contribution changes, and effective dates so that members are aware and record acknowledgements. It's very important that this process takes place because then you carry along the members in terms of contracting out. And thirdly, then you apply to RBA, submit your formal application 60 days before intended date of contracting out. And then you attach the reference scheme certificate for the scheme that you are sending into contribution, scheme documents and registration. So you will attach trust deed and any other documents that needs to be approved, and proof of employee and notification that you have sent out notification to employees, and then employer board resolution. And there must be a board resolution, not a management document. It must be a board resolution. And in 30 days, you'll get a response from RBA in terms of contracting out certificate. So that is the process of contracting out. And then once it's approved and transferred, so RBA issues a contracting out certificate, then submit certificate to NSSF. Of course, you submit the copy to NSSF, and NSSF transfers existing Tier 2. So if you have been sending contributions to NSSF, then you apply for a refund of those Tier 2 contributions, which the Act requires that they should refund in 60 days. Of course, we've had some challenges there, which I guess are being handled at this particular moment by RBA. The implementation is, update the payroll. Yeah, this month it's going to. We're going to year 4 in terms of implementation. So you need to update the payroll in terms of tier one contributions to NSSF and tier 2 to private pension scheme, ensure accurate record keeping of protected rights. So what we are saying is that the scheme that you join in must have clear systems and processes to segregate those contributions we're calling protected rights contributions, so those NSSF contributions, from the normal contributions as we speak today. So provide periodic reports to RBA and the NSSF as required, and then maintain RBA compliance and audits. So of course, in terms of compliance of the scheme, issue benefit statements to members, transfer protected rights within 90 days when an employee's exit. So employees can actually transfer their contributions from NSSF from your scheme or from an umbrella scheme to another umbrella scheme. So that movement is allowed in pension schemes as we speak. And then, of course, follow scheme compliance performance periodically to make sure the scheme is well managed. So that is in a nutshell what we are facing in this month. Now, a couple of things that I needed to mention. One is there has been issues about contracting out. Is that you'll find when you want to post contributions, the NSF does not allow you to post contributions that are only for tier 1 and tier 2. So they want you to post the salaries, the contributions in the scheme, in the system for both tier 1 and tier 2, which is not supposed to be the case. You're supposed to only post for tier 1 if you have contracted out. We are trying to address that as an industry, meeting certain stakeholders to make sure that NSSF complies to this, because they have been complaining, saying their system is not working. They have been unable to amend their system. But we think that is just a way of trying to make sure that they retain the contributions in that respect. So, Richard, I think without much ado, I would like to maybe stop there and find out if there are any questions or any comments from the members. We have an umbrella term and benefit scheme. If you have not contracted out, please let us have a conversation and we'll be able to help you contract out. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very good. If there is a time that the word demystifying has a use, it is those first pages. There is a question by Stefania Riogi. Is asking, will the NSSF Act 2013 affect secondary employees? That is one. Then we have a question by Sophia Mbogo. For staff who are on 3 to 5 years employment contract and are on gratuity, what does the contracting out mean to them? Their benefits remain with NSSF. And then there is a question by, as I look for the other question, there's somebody who wants to have your number.
Okay. I'll put my number on the chat.
And then my good friend Martha is asking, on employee engagement, you have indicated record acknowledgement. Kindly expound what this means. Let me go to...
Richard, I think the question that you are looking for is from Zephania Riogi. He's asking, will the NSSF Act 2013 affect secondary employees?
Yeah, that one I've read it. What, please?
And what about from Kamau Moshiri?
That one you can read. That one you can read.
Can we contract out to individual pension scheme?
Mm-hmm.
I think you can respond to those ones, then we can another set once you've responded to those ones.
So the first question is affecting secondary employees. What? I didn't understand what secondary employees are, Richard, unless
you can unmute them to elaborate, or they can write so that they elaborate what they mean by secondary employees.
Yeah. But on contracting out to IPP, yes, you can contract out to an individual personal pension plan if that individual personal pension plan has a reference test certificate. Now remember, contracting out is only for employers, not individuals. So of course, there are certain employers who are contributing into an individual personal pension plan. And that's why RBA has gone to an extent of giving reference test certificates to individual personal pension plans, so that those employers who are contributing into IPPs can actually contract out into IPPs. But you cannot contract out as an individual. You cannot, as an employee, wake up in the morning and say, "Me, I want to contract out." The employer is not contracting out. It's the organization that contracts out, not an individual. The other question was which one, Richard?
Sophia Mbogo, if the employer contribution is 18% and maximum contributions from employer is capped at 20, does it make financial sense to contract out? It could mean then staff could lose out on 4%. Please elaborate. Educate us on this.
If the employer contribution is 18% and the employee is 20.
If the employer contribution is 18% and maximum contributions from the employer is capped at 20%, does it make financial sense to contract out?
Yes, it does. It does. I mean, when you're contracting out, and that's another thing that you need to look at. When you're contracting out, you are not adding contributions. Yeah. So let's say today your contribution is 18%. Employee, I didn't get that 20 marks on the employee. I think I need to get that, understand that. But let's assume you are contributing 18% contribution in your occupational pension scheme today. If you are not contracting out, it means that you'll have to pay 24%, because it has to be 18 plus 6%. That becomes 24%. So of course, depending on the ability of the employer, that is possible. You can run those two schemes, one which is purely NSSF, and then you have an occupational scheme with 18%. But most employers are doing what you call integration. So you integrate your contributions of NSSF into your occupational pension scheme. So out of 18%, you take out tier 2 and tier 1. So you take out 6%, and then remain with 12%, what we're calling tier 3 contributions. But tier 1 and tier 2 will go to NSSF, or tier 2 will remain again in the scheme. So we'll have tier 2 and tier 3 in the scheme, and tier 1 goes to NSSF if the scheme is contracted out. So that of course manages cost of employment, because then your contributions are not ballooned, in terms of budget. But if you are able to, then there isn't a problem. You don't have to contract out, but then you will have to pay 18% to an occupational pension scheme and then pay 6% to NSSF.
There's a question, Elise. Hi, Fred. What happens to existing pension scheme already? Do we still deduct for pension or submit tier 2 only and disband pension?
No, you don't have to disband pension. You have a scheme. That's what I've mentioned. You have a scheme today. For example, if you have a scheme today that has 10% contribution, employee and employer, then it means that you contract out. You need to pay 6% to NSSF and remain with 4% in the occupational pension scheme. But once you contract out, then you get back your 6%, which is tier 2 contributions. So you will only contribute tier 1 into NSSF, but tier 2 and what we're calling tier 3, which is your 4%, remains in the scheme. So you don't have to disband your scheme. Your scheme can actually get a contracting out certificate and become the scheme you're going to contract out into. Because one of the things you are doing is that you are managing, as I mentioned, you are diversifying your risks for your employees than disbanding the scheme and sending all the 12% to NSSF. And when you go to get the benefit, you are told you have to wait for 2 years. I don't know. You may wait for longer. I don't know. It all depends. Governance can be a challenge of the scheme. So you need to diversify. I know NSF is improving, but you need to diversify so that you have an occupational pension scheme that has contributions for tier 1 and tier 3. I mean, tier 2 and tier 3, but then tier 1 goes to NSSF.
Yes, there's a question by Eugene Onyango. NSSF got 17% between the year 2024 and 2025. How much did Octagon realize in the same period? That is one. There is asking, can one access their personal pension funds from a private company before they have reached age 50? If yes, what is the next step for one to pursue getting these funds when insurance company insists that any access to funds before 50 is not allowed? Then there is Sophia again. There is a treasury circular that caps employer contributions to 20%. That is in relation to the question that you had answered. Then there is another one by Nelly. Nelly, in any one case, employee resigned before retirement age, can he or she, that is the same, it is related, can they access NSSF funds when they resign? Then there is Stephen, he has a situation whereby, I'm not saying that he's him, but it's him was asked that what can he do when an employer is not remitting NSSF? Over to you, Fred.
Okay. The first question is NSSF declared 17% as at June 2025. Now, our year end for private pension schemes is December, so we are now doing audits, and we'll definitely get a higher return than NSSF, definitely. In the year 2024, we got a return of I think 14%, I think 13.8%. NSF got much less. So we will compete on service and of course on return, but also return based on a platform that on a trust platform, that's I don't want to say many things because we're talking about government organization. So we will give you returns which are real, which when you come, we'll be able to give you that benefit as it is. Now, the second question is whether you can access the benefit or not. NSSF, you cannot access it until you get to normal retirement age. Yeah, or earliest 50 years. Normal retirement age is either 55 or basically for NSSF it's 60. So when you get to 60, then you'll be able to get your benefit in that respect. That's why you need to be able to have, if you are running your own occupational pension schemes, you must have rules that are ring fencing those NSSF contributions. And then the circular of 20%. Now I understand the question that one was raising. The government provides that the maximum contributions that employer can pay for a government employee is 20% of the salary, and then the employee can only pay not less than half. So which means if it's 20, then must be not less than 10. So when you contract out, what we have done for government organizations, we're contracting out for them, is that we go and get a contracting out certificate for the scheme, and then be able to say, out of the 10, we remove tier 1 contributions go to NSSF, and then tier 2 remain in the scheme plus what we call tier 3. So you are still within your 10%. The employer the same, you are still within your 20%, but out of that 20% is the cost of NSSF and tier 3 contributions, so that the members don't lose out. One, but then two, you don't go beyond what the circular provides, because the circular will not allow you to make contribution more than 20% as an employer into a private pension scheme. The next question, I think I've addressed those three. Yes.
Oh, all right. How many slides do you have? Because there are so many questions. There's a segment for answering questions. Do you have more slides?
No. That's the slides I had.
Very good. There's Helen Minyasia. Please clarify on the amount one gets if the company has contracted out upon exiting organization A to another organization.
So if you are moving from one organization to another and you have contracted out, you do not get any benefit. So you can only transfer those contributions from one scheme to another because that benefit is not paid to you. That benefit is preserved until normal retirement age. And that's why we're encouraging employers to have tier 3 contributions, which means that a member can be able to access. If you are keen, you may have seen in the press, RBA trying to introduce what you call a two-pot system, where some benefits will be preserved and some benefits will be accessed as employees earn, as employees work. Now, that's going to be an interesting phenomenon that has happened in South Africa. So that is only going to take place for tier 3 contributions. The contributions that are for NSSF will be preserved until you get normal retirement age. So at retirement age is when you are able to get your benefit.
There is a question by Peter Ngogi. Advice for employees who work on small contract basis and earnings are less than 28K on contribution of tier 2.
As long as anyone is an employee, you remember, is a casual, a contract, whoever it is, you must pay tier 1 and tier 2 contributions. So a salary of 28,000 Kenya shillings, for example, today, tier 1, if you look at our slide, let me see, hopefully I should be able to do this. Tier 1 contributions, let me go back to the tables. Tier 1 contributions are 540. So if you earn a salary of 28,000 Kenya shillings, tier 1 will be 540. So you must deduct and send to NSSF. Tier 2 will be 6% of 28,000 Kenya shillings minus 540, which must go to NSSF if you don't have a pension scheme, or sent to a pension scheme which you're contracting out to. So it does not matter what kind of contract you have, whether it's casual, whether it is contract, whether it's permanent, all those employees must contribute to NSSF tier 1 and tier 2. There's no exception.
All right. There is a question by Nzioki Geoffrey. What happens in case of death of the principal member? That is one. I don't know if we were able to answer Claire's question. Oh, that one was answered. It's about access. Once, what other one? We have Wanjao Minor. Can someone please address the issue of inflation in regards to our pension scheme contribution? There was another question I thought I saw. It is about what financial advice can you offer in the light of these deductions. I can't remember who asked it. Then let me see. Hughes Maratani. Is it possible to contract in after contracting out for a period of 3 months? Is it possible to contract in after contracting out for a period of 3 months?
Okay.
Then there's this one. If I don't ask it, this person is going to kill me. Hi, Fred. Thanks for empowering HR practitioners with this knowledge. HR practitioners need to take interest and influence retirement saving practices for the benefits of workers. Please clarify, is NSSF readily accepting contracting out? We previously had resistance on this. So comment on resistance, that is by my good friend Paul Okemba, who is very passionate about pension schemes. We have Kamau Mushiri. If NSSF employer file does not allow separation I can't seem to understand that. If NSSF employer profile does not allow separation tier 1 and tier 2 during monthly returns. You get the question?
I get the return. The issue of returns, yes, the issue of returns. Yeah.
Yes.
So, death of a member, when in the event of death of a member, there is a small sort of graduated benefit paid out of NSSF. But then also you also get a refund of your contributions, both employer and employer, for tier 1 and tier 2, whether it's contracted out or all of it is in NSSF. So that's a quick one. At normal time and age, as I mentioned, of course, you get a percentage of it, which is a third of it, yes, as cash lump sum, and then 2/3 you get a monthly pension, which must be bought from an insurance company as an annuity. In terms of inflation, yes, inflation is a bigger problem and is a bigger challenge for any investment. Is that if your investment does not make a good return, then you will end up, as I mentioned, having a pair of shoes from your investment as a pension. So that's why you need to make sure that your investments are diversified equally enough in assets that can give you returns that are above inflation over a longer term period. Yeah, and that advice is given by fund managers and investment advisors that are approved by the Retirement Benefits Authority. Financial advice, I don't know, financial advice is, it can be very personalized. Very personalized because all of us are different positions of finance, so I do not know what kind of financial advice one would want to have. I have put my number there. I have put my email there. You can drop me an email, you can drop me a WhatsApp, and we can have a conversation about what situation you are in and how we can be able to help you come out of that situation. In terms of contracting in, yes, you are allowed to contract in. You have contracted out and you feel like it's not working. I want to contract in. You can contract in. You can try to say, now I'm going to send back the contributions to NSSF, and that is basically allowed. Whether NSSF is readily accepting contributions, of course, they will not readily accept contributions because they will not readily accept contracting out because they are losing out on contributions. And that fight has been there. We continue to fight around it. But of course, there are methods of how you can be able to make returns. Somebody was asking about separation of those contributions when you are making returns on the platform for NSSF. There are methods of you making returns to make sure that you still are compliant, but you are not making returns on tier 2, you are making returns on tier 1. That we can be able to advise you on one-on-one.
Claire Nyambati, the contacts for Fred have been shared. Look for them. Jacinta, you can kindly share them again. As we look for other questions. The other question I could like to ask, because you have got a footprint in Uganda, TZ, I think so. What are the comparisons? And the other thing I could like to ask, why is it so complex? Because something like this should be easily digestible by, if this thing is difficult for HRs to grasp, what about the common mwananchi? Is there something you can do in the industry so that it is less difficult or it's not so complex to understand?
I think we have actually tried to demystify it as much as possible. I remember in 2014, when we were implementing it in February, I remember we held a meeting, HRM held a meeting, and I was addressing HR people at the Hilton Hotel. And the hotel was full until outside, because there was such a panic. But I can see only 134 people here. So you can see that people have come to know what it is. It is, in my view, it's the simplest process. Ghana has the same structure of tier 1 and tier 2. In fact, then they have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 contributions. Of course, Uganda has just is a one contribution, which is 5% and 10%, and the whole amount goes to NSSF. Now, the only challenge with that is that compliance becomes very difficult because people don't trust government, and they try to run away. So you find, and that's why you find the NSSF of Uganda currently is something like about 600 billion in assets. If you look at the private sector in Uganda, is something like about 50 billion in assets. Yeah. Now compare Kenya. The NSSF Kenya is something like about 500 billion in Kenya shillings. But the private sector is 1.9 trillion. So it's because of separation. I mean, trying to make sure that the government does the right thing. Government does what it's supposed to do, provide environment for this. But of course, worldwide we have what we call the first pillar, the second pillar, and the third pillar. And the first pillar is always the government providing a basic pension. And for us, a basic pension should come from a minimum wage, 6% of your minimum wage. That is your basic pension. And then you have the second pillar, which comes from tier 2 contributions. The third pillar comes from tier 3, and your individual personal pension plans, and of course any other plans you have for purpose of saving of pension schemes. So it's not complex. If we go the route that Uganda has, which seems to be simpler, 5% and 10%, then you basically kill the private sector pension schemes. But then 2 is that you don't provide an alternative. The Constitution requires that people should have alternatives to be able to choose in terms of where they can be able to save for their retirement and for whatever they want to do in life. So that is what it is. Tanzania is 10% and 10%. Zambia has a minimum contribution, has sort of like a tier 1 contribution that goes to NSSF. And then any other contribution out there goes to a private pension scheme. So, every country has a different model, but we and Ghana has almost similar models for purpose of managing.
All right. You can give us your parting shot.
Okay. I think before I do, there was a question. I saw a question, somebody asking about interns. Interns don't contribute to NSSF because they are basically, those are seen like apprenticeship programs. So to their training programs, they don't contribute to NSSF. But once you bring them on contract, then basically you need to make sure that they contribute to NSSF. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Kindly let us all look at this from a positive perspective. Basically, we're getting better and better for our employees. We are increasing the benefit for the employees at the time when they come to retirement. But then more importantly is that we are increasing coverage, because then organizations are feeling they're contributing to better run private pension schemes. And if you have not contracted out and you wish to contract out, please reach out to us. We'll help you, we'll work with you and support you through the process until you get to contracting out. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Fred, where are you based? Where are your offices in Nairobi?
We are on Ojujo Road. We are on a building called Westpark Suites. It's on Ojujo Road, just adjacent to Parklands Police Station, and after Ruby's when you're coming from town. You will get us there on 8th floor, Octagon Africa Financial Services Limited.
Thank you very much. Let us appreciate Fred for that wonderful conversation that he has given unto us. I'm sure that this month we are going to do a good job in terms of the deductions and the advice we are going to give our employers. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host was Jacinta Karwanje. This is Richard Magoma. Richard Magoma is a public speaking coach and interview preparation trainer. We appreciate Atara Solutions for giving us this chance to learn things that are important for our business and careers. Thank you very much, Grace and Atara Solutions and your team. Until next week on Tuesday for another exciting topic. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.